What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's going on with the overall market moving forward and talk about some very important data, not to mention some big stuff coming out for tomorrow. But before I begin double information, before I talk about what the charts are looking like, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention free level 2 data with $0 in commission trading. The offer ends in just about 20 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's break down what's happening to the markets. Looking at SPY, we just got the CPI report that came out, and we saw a very, very interesting amount of volatility. Going into yesterday, the market pumped very, very hard to the upside, approaching CPI, and this turned into a buy the rumor, sell the news event, because what happened was the market priced in a very, very good CPI. The market was very excited yesterday. That's why the market started to just push and push and push and push like crazy, approaching CPI. The data came in all below expectations. I went over all of this in more detail in my morning video. So the data was good, and the market ended up continuing to push once it came out. But then it saw a big rug pull because it already knew that this data was priced in. And that's what tends to happen during events like this. So I just want to note that CPI came in aligned with expectations, if not below expectations. Same thing with core CPI. You guys can see this big downtrend that's kind of being respected right now. And once again, I don't really fully trust this data. I'm just saying, I'm only going over these numbers because of the fact that the market kind of like accepts this data. And this is what the Fed is also going to be looking at. This also affects PCE data and other factors that the Fed uses for its analysis. So this is very important. We have a nice downtrend on CPI that's being reported. Not to mention the fact that we got the lowest reading on a month-over-month basis we've seen in the entire last like 12 months. So not bad whatsoever so far. Right now, the market was very excited about this, which is why we got a very initial reaction to the upside, only to get dumped back down because of the facts that this was already priced in, and also because of manipulation, many different factors. So now, I just want to mention that we have more data coming out for tomorrow that's going to have a significant impact on the markets. We have PPI data coming out for tomorrow. This is going to be very, very important because you have to consider that PPI is just another version of CPI, except from the wholesale side. It's going to have a big effect on manufacturing, not to mention prices for the future. So this is going to affect future data for CPI. But considering the fact that all the PPI reports were decent for the last few months and that CPI was decent, there's a high probability that PPI is going to be completely fine. I actually favor that this is going to be aligned with expectations, maybe not really affecting the market too negatively. This is more positive, if anything. But we have another major factor that will affect things. That's going to be the big bank earnings. Now, these banks are the lenders. They're the ones that are lending money out to these massive corporations, to big companies out there. And if the banks start struggling, this is going to be a bad piece of news for these massive companies, especially on the tech side. Now, if the opposite were to happen, if the banks are doing really, really well, that's going to be a good sign for not only our economy, but also for many of these other companies that are kind of situated with them. So, from what I see for tomorrow, before the market opens, we have JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, all these big banks announcing their earnings. I gave you guys a warning about this in my earlier video. And this is going to be very important because what the banks end up announcing will give us more insights on how the economy is looking. It's going to give us more insights on what they see for the economy too, and also what they see for their own earnings moving forward, at least for guidance and such. So guidance is going to be very key tomorrow. I'll go over all of this tomorrow in my morning video. But this is going to cause a big move in the markets, in my opinion. We will see if this leads to a bounce or not. Right now, the market is still quite neutral. It's because we were super greedy. We were seeing greed just kind of like taking over. And now neutral is what's making up sentiment. We're still kind of in the middle. We're not extremely bearish quite yet unless we lose some key supports. And if we get bad bank earnings, then yes, we could turn a lot more fearful. But we're still quite neutral. Momentum is still in favor of greed because we're still well above our 125 daily moving average. And what I mean by that is this. When you zoom out of SPY, okay, I know people are panicking, saying the market's going to crash and this and that. Well, hold on a second, okay? Hold on a second. There's no guarantee this is a big crash because we're still on a big uptrend. SPY is still on a uptrend. We're making higher highs and higher lows. We haven't even lost the support right here in the 542 area to really turn bearish. So we're still holding up. We're still on an uptrend. That's why momentum is still extremely greedy. So I'm going to talk more about that in just a few minutes. On top of all of this, the puts and call option positioning is still at extreme greed. because we're starting to see more puts being closed, more calls being bought, as it's making up the majority of our positions. Volatility is also kind of neutral as we're still testing our 50 daily moving average. Not much is shifting from here, so we'll have to give this a little bit more time. With that being said, that's what I'm seeing at least for these different metrics. What do I see for the charts? Now, guys, I just wanted to say that I am not a fortune teller. I don't know what the big bank earnings are going to look like, so I can't make any promises in today's video, but I can tell you what's very probable based off these charts. We're going to be looking for a very big test on ES and SPY for tomorrow, in my personal opinion. SPY is approaching 555.9. This is going to be our key support. It's very simple. If we lose this tomorrow, if we fail to hold the 555s, we're going to see a rug pull all the way down to at least the 552 area. If we lose this key support, this green line right here, if we lose this, we're going to turn a lot more bearish, right? And this is going to be fueled by the big bank earnings, not to mention the PPI data. I don't know for sure what these are going to look like. That's why I gave you guys a warning about this, because as a day trader, one thing you have to remember is that we don't always know what's going to happen. We can't predict the next war that's going to come out. We don't know what's going to happen with another pandemic. We never know what could always happen. That's why you always want to be prepared for that, and you always want to be conscious of what you don't know. So I'm conscious of the fact that I don't really know what's going to happen. That's why I was very, very careful, and I gave you guys a warning. So I just want to make it clear that if we're bearish tomorrow, you want to see us lose 555.8 on SPY. If this breaks, we're going to start dipping lower. And for bullish, you want to see a bounce off this trend line. We're going to be approaching the support right here. We bounce off this green line. We're going to be going back up to 558, then 560. So it all depends on this EMA right over here. That's going to be very important, very, very key for how we end up moving. And I'm personally kind of in the middle right now. We are looking a little bit more bearish, technically speaking. It does favor downside after this big red bar. So this does look like it wants to go all the way down to much lower levels and start breaking down to the low 550s. You could sure argue that, but for confirmation, you need to see us lose the 20 EMA. And I can't officially say that this will most likely happen until we lose that EMA. So I'll be watching to see if we lose the 20 EMA or not. That's going to be very, very important, very key for how we end up moving. And we'll see if we get a bounce or not. So I'll be watching for that as well. For others out there, I just wanted to mention that for ES is also in a very, very critical place. We have this resistance around this 56.48 area, and we also have support right over here around 56.30. If we lose this, we'll be dipping all the way down to about 56.14. So to turn bearish on ES, okay, we've lost one support. We actually lost our 20 EMA, but we have to lose 56.14. If we lose 56.14, we're dipping all the way down to the lower 5600s into the 5500s. I think are going to be coming. So watch for confirmation if we lose this support. If we turn bullish, if we break past 56.48 on ES, the 20 EMA, we're going to turn back up. I think we're going to be retesting previous support becoming resistance all the way up here around 56.68, which translates to the 5600 plus area for SPY, or I'm sorry, the 560 plus area for SPY. So we'll see. As of right now, with this big red bar, this is powerful, guys. It's very powerful. So typically, this does lead to more downside. It's looking a little bit more favorable, but I can't make that promise. I think it depends a lot on the data and such. So technicals do look a little bit more bearish for SPY and ES, but it depends on the data, it depends on the big bank earnings, it depends on the PPI report. So watch for that just to be safe. Now, Nvda technically is looking more bearish. Okay, we're losing our 50 EMA. This looks more bearish. It looks like it wants to be coming down to at least 125. If we lose that, we have this imbalance to fill all the way down here towards 121. To be bullish, you want to break past 128 and then 129. I'm not really seeing us breaking through our EMAs. We're actually looking more bearish. So technically speaking, this looks more bearish. To me, it's favoring downside as a much stronger possibility. So be very careful with Nvda. I do favor downside for tomorrow just based off technicals. So we'll see if the big bank earnings support this, but that's something I just wanted to call out. Now, Bitcoin's in the middle. I do see a little concern with Bitcoin, the fact that we're kind of in a range. We have a double top-like structure, so this is actually looking a little bit more bearish. If we lose support at 57,000, Bitcoin's going to get a big rug pull. Okay, but if we break past 58,037 or 50 EMA, Bitcoin could bounce. So it's kind of stuck between those levels. I know they're very basic. It's 57,000 to lose that we're bearish, break 58,000 we're bullish. We're going to be watching for this going into tomorrow. I do see a risk looking at the PPO that this might actually dip a little bit lower, all the way down here towards 56,000, forming a double top. But like I said before, it depends on the big bank earnings and factors like the PPI. Many people told me that they weren't expecting CPI to really affect Bitcoin, but look at how Bitcoin moved today. Okay, upon open, it pumped all the way up to almost 60,000. Then it dumped all the way down to 57,000. You guys can see how it kind of had a similar structure as the overall market, which goes to show that yes, it is still impacted by important data. On top of all of this, I just wanted to talk about Tesla. Tesla looks very bearish from a technical standpoint. In my personal opinion, I think it's going to be testing basically 231 as support. I think that's going to be tested. If we bounce off this, we're going to be looking for a move back up to 245. And if we lose this, we're going to be dipping all the way down towards, I think we could be dipping to 220. I think 220 is going to be our next target if we end up losing 231. So Tesla looks more bearish to me from a technical standpoint, especially after the bad news that came out. I have a very bearish looking daily candlestick. So it's favoring downside right now. It looks like it's going to dip a little bit more for tomorrow. That's looking more favorable no matter what the data looks like. So I favor it at least 231, if not 220 on Tesla, just temporarily. But don't worry, don't panic, don't be scared. We could still bounce later on. I think the daily chart was very useful. I was looking at something very interesting. The daily 20 EMA is at 219. So I think Tesla's going to easily fill this gap at 230 and maybe come in a little bit lower. It might come down to fill some of these gaps and maybe try to bounce off the 200 or the 20 EMA. So my favorite downside on Tesla, I want to be very, very blunt and honest about that. That's what I'm seeing for now. QQQ looks very bearish on the daily, but there's a big but. We'll see if the bank earnings confirm this and it kind of help out. If we're bullish, you want to see 496 break. If that breaks, we're going back up to 500. And if we end up losing 490, that's going to be our 50 EMA tomorrow. If we lose 490, we're going to be dipping all the way down into the 480s. I think 484 is likely coming. So we'll see if we get a rug pull or not. That's going to be very pivotal for the way we end up continuing. But watch for that very carefully and see if we end up getting that rug pull. That's going to be pivotal for the way the market moves. I think there's a risk of the QQQ dipping lower looking at the daily time frame. For Apple, Apple's kind of in the middle. We actually have support right here at 227. If we lose 227, we're going to be dipping all the way down towards 223, very, very close to where our 50 EMA is going to be. If we try to bounce, we're going to be looking for about 230. We look a little bit more bearish looking at this red candlestick right here. It's very bearish looking. This favor is kind of like bouncing and dropping lower as the most likely possibility. But I'm not going to promise it. Like I said before, it depends on the data that's coming out for tomorrow. All right, so that's it for the main tickers I tend to talk the most about when it comes to news and such. With this bearish looking structure on Apple, this could also dictate a lot of other tickers. Now let's talk about more. We have Palantir. Palantir tried to push a little higher. We did call out 29, came just under that before we got a rejection. So watch 27.41 as support. If we lose that tomorrow, we're going down to 26.4. If we hold this, we're going back up to 28. We're kind of in the middle. I do see a big red bar, so it kind of favors dipping lower, but just to be safe, we'll wait and see what the data causes. For Supermicro, we're building a little bit of momentum. We might try to back test 900, maybe go a little higher for 900. And if we establish a lower high, we could actually reject off 900 and start tipping back down to 867. But if we're bullish, we want to see it break past 900 and turn back up. This is very little pop and drop like move, and that's looking a lot more favorable to me. For Rivian, we're actually on a nice uptrend right here from our 20 EMA. So it's looking a little bit more bullish. We're going to be looking at 17 to be tested. If we break past this, there's going to be a nice push all the way up towards 18. If we reject off 17, we're going to be dipping all the way down towards 15.8. So look for a test of 17. Reject, we're going down to 15.8. Break it, we're going all the way up to 18. It really depends on what we end up doing from this reaction. There was an instance where we kind of rejected near 17, and we do have some tough resistance approaching. So look for a test of 17 tomorrow and see if you get a rejection or not in Rivian from a technical standpoint. And we'll also see how the big bank earnings affect us. So if I got a nice bounce, we did call out a potential, a potential bounce on SoFi. I'm going to be looking at 6.81. That's our 200 EMA. If we break through this, we're going all the way up towards 7. If we reject here, we're going to be coming back down towards 6.64. I'm in the middle right now, so we'll have to give this some time, but just watch and see how it reacts. That's going to be key. For the IWM, okay, I want to call this out. This is very bullish. The IWM is very, very bullish, guys. Got a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure. Nice looking breakout that's forming. And we're looking very, very bullish in my personal opinion. I think that tomorrow we're going to be testing 212.5 and maybe even break through that. It looks very bullish to me. It's outperforming the market big time as we're seeing small caps leading the way. Look for 212. If we reject off 212, we're going to be coming back down to 210. But I favor a test of 212.5 for a little bit more upside. We'll see how the data affects it, but it is favoring upside as a stronger possibility. AMD. If we lose 176.9 for we're dipping down to 170, and if we hold this, we're going to be looking for resistance at 187. This is just shuffling in the middle, so I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of dip and then bounce and trade sideways tomorrow around 180. It's not really doing much, so I can't say too much, but I do see a risk of it coming down to 177. Maybe it shuffles and maybe dips a little bit. We'll see. For ARM, I see a test of 171.5 coming. If we lose 171.5, we're going to dip all the way down towards 167. And if we hold 171.5, we could be bouncing it up to 178. This is looking a little bit more bearish. So look for a little bit more downside, and then we'll see what the reaction is once we hit our 50 EMA, depending on what we get from the announcements for the data. For Coinbase, we're in the middle, looking a little bit more bearish, technically speaking. It's just kind of sold off like crazy after getting this liquidity grab. So it's favoring a test of about 212. To be bullish, you want to see it break past 220, but this favors 212 in my personal opinion. For Amazon is back testing 195.78. If you reject it, we're going to be dipping all the way down towards 192. If you break through this, we're going to be looking for 198. Now it's looking a little bit more bearish with this bearish looking red bar. This favor is kind of like rebounding just a little bit, then continuing lower. That's looking a little bit more probable right now, but it depends on the big bank earnings. Okay, so I can't predict that entirely. So we'll see what that catalyst leads to. But technicals do favor more downside looking at this big red bar, and also the fact that we're barely back testing our 50 EMA. Meta's looking a little bit more bearish to me. I'm favoring a test of 508 all over again than 505. To be bullish, you want to get back up of 518. My gut tells me that this is going to dip lower. It looks pretty weak right now. It's favoring a bigger drop all the way down to at least 505. But just to be safe, we'll see what the big bank earnings cause. Microsoft, it's going to likely try to push a little higher, a teeny bit higher, maybe retest 456. If we reject, you're going to be looking for a move all the way down to 450. If you break through this, we'll be looking for basically 460. So I'm favoring a little pop and drop like move on Microsoft, a little bit more downside is looking more favorable, all the way down to this imbalance. So I think it might be coming down to about 450 before it tries to bounce. But like I said before, we have this big red bar. Usually when you see big red bars like this leads to a little bit more downside, especially on the daily time frame. So this favors kind of like a pop and drop, but we'll see what happens with all the data coming out. Google has tested a 187 exactly as you predicted. If we lose this, we're coming all the way down to this imbalance. 184.7 is coming. If we bounce off this, we're going to be looking for 189. I'm favoring downside a little bit more in my personal opinion. GameStop is showing some life, is trying to break out right now. If we could try to get back above 26, there's going to be a much bigger move to the upside. I think it might be testing 26, so it looks a little bit more bullish to me. But AMC, on the other hand, is just kind of choppy. It's just chopping between 15 and 20 EMAs. Look for a test of 5.24. If this breaks, look for 5.4, and I think we're just going to continue to shuffle. For DJT basically has 30.16 as resistance. If this breaks, look for 32. It's just shuffling right now. It's kind of struggling to break past our 20 EMA. So if we break 30, we're going back up. If we fail to break it, we're going to be coming back down. We still have this gap to fill at 27. So I still favor it's going to eventually fill that. Maybe pop and then drop all the way down to fill it. But we'll see. We'll see how things go. For the VIX, we're just trading sideways. Look at the 200 EMA 13.15 as resistance. We'll see if we get a rejection or not. If we break through this and continue to push, this could be a breakout on the VIX that's coming, maybe favoring a little bit more downside for the markets. The 10-year Treasury yield is looking a little bit more bearish. It's still continuing to drop. That's because of the fact that we got a decent CPI, but it's not really affecting the market much. And the dollar came down a bit. Now we're going to be watching to see if we get a bounce after this liquidity grab. If we get back above 104.6, I think we could be testing this previous support becoming resistance at 104.8. We'll see if that ends up being the case or not. So we'll be very, very patient nonetheless. But with that being said, guys, I just want to say I really appreciate you guys so much for listening. Please have a great rest of the day. There are videos where I'm very confident about certain moves, by the way. I'm not always this uncertain. The reason why I'm being a little bit less certain about the moves is because I don't know what's going to happen with the big bank earnings. I am telling you what technicals are favoring, but don't take this for don't basically just take this as financial advice or anything like that. Be open-minded just in case we do end up bouncing off key supports. That's always a possibility. Technicals do look kind of weak, but we're going to be watching to see if we get a bounce off the earnings coming out in the PPI data. So just be careful. We'll see if this is a fake out or not. We're going to be open-minded no matter what happens, but just know that technicals for a lot of stocks still look kind of weak. So we'll see what reaction we get with all this data coming out from big bank earnings to PPI. And obviously, I can't predict what's going to happen with 100% certainty. So just be open-minded no matter what and watch your levels just for confirmation. As a day trader, you have to be prepared for anything sometimes. And this is one of those cases. But like I said before, I will still give you guys my predictions and tell you what I think is more probable based off what I'm seeing. But with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day, guys. And I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thanks for listening and peace out.